Y'all, I have never in my life had bangs before chopping my hair off, and it's hard. It shouldn't be this hard. Like, of all the things in my life that I have figured out, bangs is not yet one of them. I really think that's the best that we're gonna get for now, so it's okay. We're on a journey. We're on a journey. And I have enough single alfalfa hair?
Nice!
Where did you come from? Hello, silly gooses. Welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you are new here. I don't think I've wrapped up any books in like a year. I don't think I've really talked in depth, like book review style, in a very long time. Oh, the irony for having a channel entirely dedicated to book reviews. It just happens sometimes, you know? I got seduced by all the exciting, fun, gimmicky video ideas, and I lost the plot a little bit. No pun intended. I can't even tell you the last time I did a wrap-up of any kind. So wrap-ups in general will be coming back periodically this year, but what better way to get back into the swing of book reviews than to wrap up the best books I read in 2023. I picked my top 7. We like the number 7 around here. But I do have a few extras to quickly mention that were close to the top, just didn't quite feel like top 7 material. I don't really have a favorite genre, except that I'm not really a horror person, not much of a thriller person. However, there are 2 horror books in this pile, which is maybe a sign that I should be a little bit braver dipping my toes into more horror this year. You're as surprised as I am. Okay, so we have a couple of surprises. There is fantasy on this list, there is young adult on this list, there is romance on this list, there is historical and literary fiction on this list. Truly a range, which is what you can expect from my channel at all times. Like, I really do read, I feel like I read a little bit of everything. We're gonna start at the bottom of my honorable mentions and then go all the way through basically worst to best, but that's not, like, for my best books of the year video, there are no worst, right? I just put them in order from least favorite to favorite. You get it. First on my honorable mention pile is YN, or Your Name, by Esther Yee. This is a kooky ass book. Okay, if you like really strange, really odd, stream of consciousness fever dream reads, this is the book for you, my friend. I've just set down my coffee because I need this hand to gesticulate with. YN, we read this for my book club last year. I feel like I was the only one of the group of us that really like enjoyed it, and I am a weird books enjoyer. Okay, so take that with a grain of salt. But this book, its premise is like this woman who lives in Germany, I want to say, has not a lot going for her in her personal life, and she feels very depressed and downtrodden, and like, what is the point in solving or working on my life problems or my relationships, because nothing ever works out for me. But she finds joy and escapism through a newfound obsession with this Korean boy band, and it very quickly spirals into an unhinged level of obsession. She begins to write fan fiction about this band. In particular, one member of the boy band, Moon, is like the object of her heart's desire, truly. And so this book is written back and forth between looking at her, telling her story, and also written as fan fiction with your name in the actual book. So you as the reader are meant to like insert your name. That's very much a fan fiction thing. And it gets wilder and wilder. And as the book goes on, you're not really quite sure, is this part of the fan fiction? Have we descended into pure madness? Like, you aren't really sure what's real and what's not anymore by the end of this book. And it really has a lot to say about obsession and fan culture and this kind of like generalized escapism when you have an interest or a hobby that you love so much to like an unhealthy level. I think I gave this a 4-star, but I think about it all the time. I've never read a book quite like this, and I think I'll be hard-pressed to find another one that just left me in a similar state of mind after finishing this book. It was absolutely wild, and if you need a weird kooky read in your life, again, give it a try. It's super short, and it is very unique, that's for sure. Next on my list of honorable mentions is Pure Nessie by Susanna Clarke. I wouldn't describe this book as cozy, but it's also not unsettling. There are moments, for sure, like there are moments of tension and mystery, but really you just feel so deeply for the main character of this book, who is at the opening of the story wandering alone and aimless through this very surreal, endless castle of ruins in this like alternate world or something, where he feels like, I'm the only one in this entire weird building, and there are waves constantly crashing into this house. There are all of these statues, weird statues throughout the house, and he spends his days cataloging just the endless expanse of this house and all of the halls and all the corridors and the tides and all the different statues. And the first 50 pages of this book is like, why am I reading about this weird man writing in his diary about weird statues? And the more that you go through it, it just is really such a genius, well-told story. And I think about this book all the time. This is a fantasy like nothing else I've ever read, a very short, sweet, standalone fantasy. I have been on a search for the high that this book gave me, the very specific like energy and feelings of this book, and I have yet to find another one. So if you have recommendations for similar books to Pure Nessie or books that gave you a similar feeling, I am all ears, because I would love to read more fantasy like this. It was just, I guess, very self-aware about being mysterious and also wholesome about it. Definitely part of the fun of this book is uncovering the mystery as you go. Like, I really don't want to say anything else about the story itself. And if you read the first 50 pages and you're like, I don't understand what is going on, that is how you're supposed to feel. Just trust the process and keep going, because it turns out to be just this like Pandora's box of stories and threads and connecting plot lines, and it just is really so magical, and I loved it so very much. So that's Pure Nessie. Okay, and these next two books on my runners-up are the two horror books, which is just really a shock that we've made it here. First of all, that I read two horror books last year, and that I loved them both enough to end up here is really a twist, okay? So the first one I want to talk about is Patricia Wants to Cuddle by Samantha Allen, and this is like satirical horror. This was like my dipping a toe into the genre, knowing that it also was supposed to be funny, and like over the top for the sake of being funny and like pointing out certain bits of commentary through the horror. There is that like heavy-handed layer to it. And it really did that so well, I thought. Is about a show that is basically The Bachelor, and they get to the final handful of contestants, which if you're familiar with The Bachelor, once they get to the last few, like 4 or 5 maybe, last few eligible gals, they take them to some like very luxurious vacation destination. And so instead of that, they take them to this creepy small town island off the coast of Washington, up in the Pacific Northwest. And so all of these women are like,
why are we here? Like, I thought we would get to go like to Tahiti or something, but here we are in this like weird rainy island in the middle of nowhere.
So it's already like subverting expectations in that way. And they're trying to win the heart of their bachelor while like exploring this very odd, unsettling surroundings in the woods. And so you have this reality TV aspect to the show where even the characters, it's like a story within a story, because the characters are one way when it's a scene filming for the show, and the characters are a completely different way when it's a scene that's not being filmed or interacting amongst themselves when the cameras aren't around. And you can probably guess from the cover, but there is a kind of a Bigfoot plot line to the story as well that I won't say any more about. But I found this so much fun, and the horror, which mostly comes in at the end, was again very over the top, so much so that you can suspend disbelief enough to be like, okay, like this is hilarious. Like this is intentionally way too much. That is like spoofing on The Bachelor and like horror as a genre. And I think really what was like a love letter to both, as well as pointing out a lot of the issues of both. So I really enjoyed this overall. Again, super short, fun read. And I don't really hear anyone talk about it. And I wish that I heard more true horror lovers talk about this and review this, because again, do not trust my horror opinions. I have not read enough nearly to know what I'm talking about. So I would hope that if you are a horror girly and you have read this, please give me your actual thoughts. But from what I know is that I read it, I thought it was a really fun time. My next runner-up is also kind of a horror. This is The Center by Aisha Manazir Siddiqui, and we read this for book club a couple months ago. Again, I didn't realize this would be horror per se. I thought this was like dark academia vibes, and it is. But about halfway through there you take this sharp left turn into horror territory, and at that point I'm like, we're off the rails and I'm just here for the ride. This actually, in the context of me just talking about YN, is a really similar setup for our main character. Like, she is going through a lot in her own life and feels like, I just need to take that next step to like advance myself and like pursue my dreams. Like, if only there was just like an easy way to learn a language or become a translator. Like, that's what she wants to do, is make her way as a translator. And she feels like the language that she does know is not one that's really in demand or necessarily respected by like companies that require translation services. So she happens to find out about this underground, like secret society-esque company, or school, I should say, where you can mysteriously learn in perfect fluency a language in like 10 days. Yeah, 10 days. It really explores a lot about language learning, and translation. And if you know one thing about me, it's that I love anything that touches on those types of subjects. I studied linguistics in college. That is like my nerdy interest above all others, is anything having to do with language or linguistics, translation, etc. So that was enough for me to be like, I don't even care if it's horror, I'm reading it and it's gonna be fun. And it was fun. It was fun. The twist in this book, I think I should have seen coming, but I 100% did not. And it ends up having a similar nod to things that Babel did. So if you read Babel and it was too long and dense and like pretentious for you, give The Center a try, because I feel like it really delves into similar themes, but in a more, I guess, more fast-paced, mysterious way. And that is no shade to Babel. Babel is literally my favorite book of all time, but I know that it has mixed reviews. I know it is long and dense, and it is like almost a textbook at times. So if that didn't work for you, but you were still interested in the ideas, I think that you'd really enjoy this. I thought it was a great time. The cover is amazing. Also, once you read the book, the cover becomes even more creepy. And it's just so good. Like, I will be excited to read more from this author again, because the fact that this is a debut is wild. So impressed. Absolutely loved it. My last runner-up before we get to my top 7 official 5-star reads is another huge surprise from my reading last year, is Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. And I received this book as like a book swap with some other local Bookstagrammer, BookTube people. And I had been seeing it around. I had seen that it was popular amongst the indie hockey romance girlies, but I did not consider myself any of those things. I partake in romance, happily, but I had not read a hockey romance, and I'm not really in the mix of indie romance a lot of times. This has now been traditionally published, but started as an indie romance. And so I was like, okay. And it was the middle of summer, and I just had a craving for a good romance spicy time. So I picked this up and I inhaled it in like maybe 2 or 3 sittings in a day or two. And I loved it so much. It was so unexpected that I found myself feeling so strongly for the characters in this book. Like, the romance is great. The spice is great. The hockey, the ice skating, really fun. But what most impressed me about this book is the growth of the characters, both individually and together, and the communication and boundaries and like healthy conversations that they have over the course of the book. Again, together with each other and separately with other people in their lives. Mental health is a huge topic in this book with several different characters. And I really especially loved the nostalgia of like college life with these characters. It made me feel very warm and fuzzy and miss my college days in a way that was very, yeah, like warm and fuzzy. It just brought back like happy memories from college. And I have now, since reading this, I've also read Wildfire by Hannah Grace, and I felt very similarly about that one too. I just feel like she does character development so freaking well, for romance especially. And I am usually impressed by character development in good romance authors, but Hannah Grace is in a league of her own, and I absolutely, wholeheartedly, unironically gave this an enthusiastic 5 stars. And I will be so excited to read more from her because I just had such a good freaking time with Icebreaker. We are now officially to my top 7 reads of last year, and these are now all 5-star reads. A couple of my runners-up were also 5 stars. I didn't think I was that stingy with my 5 stars, but last year I was, for some reason. So these are all the creme de la creme of my 2023 reading. Last on the list of my top 7 is Morning Star by Pierce Brown. This is the 3rd in the Red Rising trilogy, so it's the end of the series, and holy shit, that series is so good. My partner and I, Buddy, read them together, and it was his kind of first dabbling into sci-fi. He's usually a fantasy guy, and I was like, you will love them. Like, it's Star Wars met with Hunger Games, met with Game of Thrones. Like, you will love them. And he did. And we read them together and just had such a fun time being like, oh my God, what did you think of this? Oh my God, can you believe that happened? So the buddy read experience alone was a 5-star experience. But then this is probably the best conclusion to any series that I've ever read, because a lot of times I'll get sucked into a series with an amazing first book and then feel kind of like, as the series goes on. Very much not the case with Red Rising. Every single book in the series was so fucking good. So good. And the first book is like Hunger Games in space. And as the series goes on, it really is more political sci-fi Game of Thrones in space, I would say, where everyone is vying for power and influence. And there's also this very important layer of the people's uprising and revolution. Like our main character, Darrow, the first book in Red Rising is like in the lowest caste of people in this like galactic space community. He ends up like infiltrating the top caste, the golds of people, and is trying to like start revolution from within. So over the course of the series, so much happens. But Pierce Brown is one of those authors that like every single chapter has a twist and a reveal and ups and downs, and the emotions are so well done. For like a big political sci-fi, there is still such an emphasis on the characters themselves. And for the third book in the series, covering so many different characters and plot lines, I felt like every single character had a satisfying like conclusion to their arc. Even though I know there is a spin-off series that includes a lot of the same characters, but it's like in the future after the end of this book. And that's on our list too. I think down the road we'll buddy read the spin-off series. But this I think so fondly about, even though I did cry several times. It really packs a punch at certain times. But yeah, if you're looking for a good, very exciting, very fast-paced sci-fi series, this is the one. This is the one. Next on the list, number 6, is a completely different vibe from sweeping sci-fi series. This is a romance. This is The Neighbor Favor by Christina Forrest. And I read so many good romances last year. I really had my romance renaissance in 2023. I had bought this when it came out early in the year, and I picked it up in December. I just was like, I just want something cozy and fun with like really good characters. And Christina delivered. This has such a fun premise, and then just continued to be fun the entire way through. Our main character, Lily, works in publishing and feels like she's kind of at this dead end and can't quite move into like her dream publishing job. And one day she finds an email address for the author of her favorite book, which is a fantasy book that she feels like, I can't really talk about this book with anyone else, but I just found the author's email. And she sends him this super cute, like fangirly email, thinking like, oh my God, well, at least he'll never reply because he's so famous and his book is so good. So it's just, out there in the universe. Oh, well. And then he does reply. They end up having this like email pen pal relationship. And then one day he goes completely dark on her. And she's like, okay, that sucks. Like we had just become friends, but cool. I guess I'll go on living my life now. Then this hot neighbor moves in to her apartment building, and she develops this crush on her hot neighbor. And little does she know that it's actually the author that she was emailing. None of this is spoilers. All of this is like literally what's on the summary, but it definitely has You've Got Mail vibes, where they had previously had like a positive relationship over email correspondence. And now they have this completely different dynamic in person together, and they just don't realize that they are the same people, at least not at first. And I just love, books about writers and books about books and books about the publishing world. I think that's probably a normal thing for readers to enjoy. It feels a little bit meta, and I just love it. But also, again, similar to Icebreaker, like the two characters are just so well done. And Lily and Nick both have such like lush histories and growth and like internal monologue, and the communication between the two of them makes, leaps and bounds over the course of the book. Like they really learn how to communicate together. And I just found it very sweet and healthy and warm and fuzzy. And I'm pretty sure this was also a debut. And so now Christina Forrest is on my radar, okay, knowing that she can write a romance like this. And actually, because when I finished it, I was like, please tell me that I have something else to look forward to from this author. She's writing at least 2 more books in this universe that will follow Lily's 2 sisters. So I get at least 2 more with Lily, the Green family. So that is super exciting. We get a little bit of her sisters in this book too. And I just can't wait. I can't wait. It was so good. If you want a good, sweet romance, this is the one. I freaking loved it, and I need more people to read it and talk about it with. Next is a short story collection, kind of, because all of the short stories are connected. They are written each by different authors, but they all tell one big story. And it is so fun and unique, and you could tell it was just such a collaborative effort. And I enjoyed it so much. This is Whiteout by Danielle Clayton, Tiffany D. Jackson, Nick Stone, Angie Thomas, Ashley Woodfolk, and Nicola Yoon. And I love this like holographic snow globe cover. This is the same team of authors that also wrote Blackout, which I also loved and was also a 5-star read for me, but I loved this one even more. Whiteout takes place around Christmas time in Atlanta, Georgia, and they're not used to having like major snowstorms. And this is an instance where they do have a major snowstorm blizzard, and it basically shuts down the whole city for a 24-hour period. So in those 24 hours, a whole bunch happens with this handful of youngsters, teenagers, and their various love stories. And they are all kind of connected, like some of them overlap in friend circles or classmates or like coworkers. They're all kind of connected by various threads. So as the 24 hours ticks by, they each have a specific person or thing that they're trying to resolve. And it is such a wonderful, wonderful read. I read this on audiobook, and it was just absolutely so well done. This book also made me cry, just like because there's all these threads that are all leading up to a certain point, like them all connecting at the end is just so powerful and lovely and wholesome. And I have only great things to say about this book. The other fun thing is that they don't explicitly tell you which author wrote which story or which characters. Which I thought was so much fun. It's them basically saying, yeah, the 6 of us wrote it together. Like we all, worked on this together. And yes, each of them wrote a certain character, but it just really felt like this was 6 people writing a novel together. Loved it so much. And I hope that they do a dozen more of these because I just had so much fun. Same thing with their other one, Blackout again. Next is one of the most special and unique historical fictions that I've ever read, is Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. This had such a magical element to it that was like, it was historical fiction, but also had drops of like whimsy throughout. And it was like, wait, was that a sprinkle of fantasy, or was that just clever writing? She has such a unique voice as a writer. And I also read The Marriage Portrait this year, and I enjoyed that as well. And I am eager to read more and more from Maggie O'Farrell because her voice is so distinct and just a pleasure to read. But Hamnet is a historical fiction about the family of Shakespeare, who's actually never mentioned by name in this entire book. It's meant to be, spotlight on everyone else in his family. And gosh, it just is such a cool effect. Like, that it's Shakespeare's family and wife and children, but it's never said. So the focus is on Agnes, his wife, and his 3 children. And if you did not know, Hamlet, the play, is inspired by the death of his real son, Hamnet. And so this was the story, fictionalized story, because we don't know very much about his family. It's kind of been mythologized over the years. But this was Maggie O'Farrell's take on the family. I'm having a hard time describing this book for some reason, but it just was written in such a special way. And I really loved getting to experience Agnes, the mother, the wife. Her story was really wonderful and powerful. The bond of the twins throughout the book was written so magically, and I loved every single page of this book. And I think it is a fun book for a Shakespeare fan to read, especially, but even if you are just remotely interested in historical fiction, I think that you'd really enjoy this if you haven't already read it, because I was late to the game on this one, but it was fantastic. Okay, I'm very quickly losing my light, so we got to speed things up a little bit. Next, so a big goal of mine for 2023 was to work on getting through more of my series, more of my sequels. And I did pretty good on that, in part because Wes is reading a couple of series with me, and another series that we read, well, started to read last year was Game of Thrones. And the first 2 books of the Game of Thrones series I thought were just okay, but I didn't really get it yet. But Storm of Swords, which is the 3rd book in the series, was my like aha moment of like, oh, okay, this is why these books took over the damn world. This book is a masterpiece. A masterpiece. Like, every audiobook is like 40 hours long. So by the time I got to this book, I've already put in 80 hours of listening time, and there are still brand new characters being introduced. There are still new plot lines unfolding. There are still major reveals and twists and developing like actions and events in the story. It is truly masterful. I'm like absolutely mind blown the things that this book accomplishes. It's gigantic for good reason. The first 2 books in the series was like, okay, we're setting up stuff, we're going through all this world building, it's slow, it's boring at times, but Storm of Swords, there was not a moment where I wasn't on the edge of my seat. Every single chapter, something incredible was happening or being revealed. The last book right now, okay, the last book in the series is A Dance with Dragons before, you know, he gets around to finishing the series one day. And then we also still have the prequel, Fire and Blood. But so far, of the 4 books in the series that I've read, this is the standout favorite for me. So if you've been wanting to read Game of Thrones, or you've read the first one and didn't get it, power through, because this book is worth the time investment. I loved it so much. Okay, we are into the top 2. We're into the top 2. And I feel like I wasn't around very much, you know, to tease my favorite reads over the course of the year, but you might be able to guess these. My number 2 book is technically another sequel, but you could read it on its own, I think. This is Back in a Spell by Lana Harper. And this is the 3rd in the witchy romance series, Witches of Thistle Grove. The first book, I thought I had them somewhere around here. Here's the whole series. The first one is Payback's a Witch. I loved this also, but a lot of people did not love this. So keep that in mind. The second book is From Bad to Cursed. I enjoyed it. I thought it was fine. I think I gave this 3 stars. This 3rd book, Back in a Spell, has no business being as good as it is. It's like the shortest one in the entire series. It follows the sister of like one of the previous antagonists earlier in the series, and then her love interest, like our main female protagonist. Her name's Nina, and she is so well written. Like, you cannot tell me that she is not a real person. She's so well fleshed out. She has so many like intricate character traits, and like her history, her character growth, her fears, her dreams, her flaws. Like, she is so well written, and like her family baggage is like really in depth. Her romantic interest, Morty, is that his name? Yeah, Morty she kind of gets thrown into partnership with him before they really know each other very well. I wouldn't say it's enemies to lovers, but it's like hesitant, you know, like, now we are unsuspecting allies and have to problem solve together because just the circumstances of the world threw us together, and through them problem solving together, they develop this very close bond. Actually, speaking of bonds, this book has an element similar to the mate bond in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, where they are able to like basically send each other telepathic messages and like read the other person's emotions and feelings from this magical bond that they share. And I have read the ACOTAR series. I thought it was fine. The way that this book describes what that bond does for the intimacy and progression of their relationship is 10 times better than it is written in A Court of Thorns and Roses, the series. This book is like less than 300 pages, and it can get across like the impact that that bond has with them, and I loved it so much, okay? As far as like queer romances go, this is the top of the list. This was such a wonderful read for me, and I think of it so fondly. I will be rereading it this year because I just need these characters back in my head. I loved them so much. I loved their relationship so much. I loved their character growth together so much. Nina especially, I just really felt for her and related to her, and I just had such a good time. And this series has more books in it, even though I thought it was going to end with this fourth one, which came out last year also. The fourth one is In Charm's Way, which I've read and I thought was fine. But now she's announced at least one, maybe two more will be coming in the series. And I, personally, could not be more thrilled about that. So if you need a cozy, witchy romance series to dive into, let this be your sign. Because, you know, I have kind of mixed feelings about most of the books in the series. Back in a Spell, even if you just read Back in a Spell, you are in for a wonderful time. So you're welcome. Oh my gosh, we made it. The absolute best book that I read last year, I think I read in January of 2023, and it still ended up being my easy best favorite of the year, is All My Rage by Sabaa Tahir. Talk about masterpiece. This book is in a league of its own. She is in a league of her own. On the list of my favorite authors, Sabaa Tahir is at the top, you know. You may be familiar with Sabaa Tahir from her young adult fantasy series, An Ember in the Ashes, which also are all bangers, the entire series, all 4 books. This was her, you know, foray into young adult contemporary. And holy shit, is it a powerful, powerful read. I just don't even know how to describe this book. You just have to know that it is worth the read. This follows 2 teenagers in a small town in California, and also there are a couple different POVs and like time jumps between other characters in the book, and these 2 characters in particular used to be best friends, then they had a fight that you later learn what that was about, and they still both have a lot of other shit going on in their lives, and just, it is a heavy read, but a very good read. Oh my god, I cried I think like 3 times over the course of this book. It is so special. It is deserving of all of the many awards it's received. Wes and I actually got to see her visit and give a lecture at one of the local universities here, because my local library system named this book of the year in 2022. So she came and visited, and I had her sign it for me. Hello? So she signed this and also An Ember in the Ashes for me. But when I tell you, I got to the signing table and I was trying to prepare what I was going to say to her. I was so embarrassing, okay? I fangirled so hard. I don't even know if I said more than 5 words. I think I asked her what her favorite dessert was. I just stood there gobsmacked and starstruck, because it was like, wow, you are one of my favorite artists of all time, and here you are, a normal person just standing in front of me. She gave this wonderful lecture. I just love her so much, and it was such a special experience and date night for my partner and I. I am just gushing at this point. The audiobook is fantastic. If you need an audiobook to put on during your commute or something, I strongly recommend. This is a book that I like push on everyone now. It is so good. It is so good. That is everything. Those are the best books I read last year, and 2024 is already off to a fabulous start, I must say. It's really getting dark, but these were my favorite breeds, my top 7 of 2023. And what a stack, you know, what a stack of work this really is. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you added at least one book to your TBR, or if you've already read them, I would love to know your thoughts as well. Tell me what your best read of last year was, or if you just want to leave an emoji for making it to the end of the video, let's leave the sun emoji for all my rage. That's gonna do it for my end of the year. You can also follow me on Instagram if you want to see more from me, and also all of these links for all of these books will be in the description through bookshop.org. And if you do purchase any of them, I get a wee little bit of commission, you know, which is always nice. Thank you so much for being here and for watching my return to YouTube. Give your dog a big squeeze from me, and I will see you very soon. Love you, bye!